Yep.
And we got the doggo already.
Or
Now
is here.
things are right.
Aww.
Nice.
All right, and we are on YouTube.
Are we on the internet? The interwebs. Excellent.
Get that
I'll just
shared
go
real quick.
there. All right, that's set up. Where the hell is the...
All right, posted, and now we will see what happens. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the second installment of the OTC Ask Us Anything show, where we gather members of the Order of the Tigers Combatant, which is the East Kingdom grant level award for Rattan combat, and we answer the questions you guys put out. So we have a few already, but before we get started, I would like to go through our introductions here. And let us start with Trentus.
Trentus the Nubian, East Kingdom, obviously. Been fighting since 2018. 1998. Been fighting seriously for about 7 years. OTC 2017 OTC. Forgive me.
All good. All right. I can't remember how to say this properly, so Kelvin?
Colin.
Colin. Oh, that's got to be like Gaelic spelling or some weirdness.
It's well, it's Anglo-Saxon by way of the Celts. So.
Okay, there we go.
So I'm Baron Colin Arading. I served as Baron Smoking Rocks, so that's where that comes from. Let's see here. My card was signed back in 1987, and I kind of screwed around for a couple of years in and out of armor before that. I joined the Order. Kelson and John Viev, maybe the first. I honestly can't remember the mundane date. It was somewhere. It might have been the early 2000s. I'd moved in and out of Kingdom a couple times, so.
Okay.
That's me.
Talon.
Hi, I'm Baron Talon, Talon Gwynth, Welsh. Started in 2001, been fighting for nearly 20 years, got my OTC in 2019 under Ozer, and been alternate for the Unbelts a couple of times, trying to make the main team. We'll see how that goes when we all get back to Pennsic. Sword and board is my forte.
Nice. All right, Titus.
Hi, I'm Titus Claudius Sylvanus, East Kingdom. I'm in the land of the bad people in Malagentia. I try to fight everything and everyone, really. And I got my OTC the last G&E that we had.
And the look on your face was awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony.
Hey everybody, I am Viscount Anthony McKinnivick. I am a Knight of the Society, a Viscount of the Mists, and a very proud OTC from the East. I started fighting at Pennsic 40, because Pennsic 39 was my first event, so Pennsic 40 was the first time I fought at a Pennsic, really. There was a little bit of practice before then. It was embarrassing. We try not to talk about it. I got my OTC in 2016. And became a prince about 5 months later in the Mists. So it was a real fast, wild ride. Happy to be here.
Thank you. All right, Reinhardt.
Hello, my name is Reinhard Basarab Draculesti. I am the current seated Baron of l'Île du Dragon Dormant up in Tirmara, Quebec. Francophone power, yeah. I've been fighting in the SCA for 7 or 8 years, been an OTC for 3,
Basically got it at the beginning of 2017. And I'm mainly focused on Scutum and Sword, trying to slowly branching out on other things and getting my ass kicked. And then COVID hit, so my ass is still fine and I'm good. Thank you.
And our latecomer, Benjamin.
Apologies, I was eating cake. It's my birthday.
Happy birthday, man.
Happy birthday, dude.
So I am Benjamin Black. I've been fighting a long time. I actually got started in the Mid-Realm when I was living in Iowa, and then got serious about fighting when I was living in the Dominion of Merkphalan, right around the time that Ethelmark became a kingdom, is when I left Merkphalan and moved to the East Kingdom. Took some time off there and then started fighting again seriously, and have been in the East, in the Shire of Quintavia for 15 years now or so. I was made an OTC in 2015 by Brennan II.
Very nice, thank you.
Oh, and I'm a polearm primary there, since we're saying that too.
We won't hold
Yeah.
that against you.
I'm a polearm accidentally primary. How about that?
I will hold mine against you if you'd like.
There you go.
Anytime we're not COVID quarantined. The nice thing is with polearm, we can keep safe distance.
Exactly. Warglaives and we're good to go.
8 feet, Warglaives, poke only.
And I am your host, Thorin Olfson. I've been fighting in the East since 2012. I was made an OTC actually 2 years ago today, under Wilhelm and Vienna.
Happy OTC Day to you.
Yay! And my main forms are 2 weapons, specifically lefty sword and axe, and polearm. So
Now, are you actually a lefty, or did you just choose to be lefty sword and axe?
I'm hardwired to be a lefty, forced to learn right-handed for most things in my life, and when I got injured, busted my right shoulder, which forced me back to left-handed permanently.
Okay. I had a friend who was an Olympic fencer, and he, out of the gates, decided he wanted to be a left-handed fencer because he knew it would screw other people up. And he made the Junior Olympics doing it. Like, he was actually quite good at it, but he was right-handed in everything he did except fencing.
Yeah, he's pretty much, Thorin's pretty much trying to do a Sir Matthew all over again.
Nice.
Including injury?
Well, my injury was getting eaten by a bus door, so I'm not sure what his was. Literally, the rear door malfunctioned and on my arm.
Ouch.
Some
So,
of us are
yeah,
just not
including
smart enough
injury.
to know better than to start fighting as a lefty polearm.
So now that we have that out of the way and we've already established that I am not the brightest bulb in the bunch, we can move on to some of the questions that we have. So, one of the first ones right out of the gate that we had posted today. So, for one to take a man-at-arms, does one need to be only a squire, or just or must they have the rank of OTC or higher? Which is an interesting perspective. Anybody want to take lead? Or Colin? And then Trent.
Well, it's not a recognized relationship in the game, the rules set. Right? So I'm like, dude, I want to learn from you. There you go. Define the relationships yourself. Off you go. Pretty much my thoughts.
Trent?
There's a strong misconception that a squire having a red belt, being a squire, is about a rank in the East Kingdom or your kingdom's army. It has nothing to do with it. It's the relationship between you and your knight or a household. You can actually be one of the best fighters out there and just not have a knight, have any type of advocate, and you are walking around with a black belt. That doesn't mean people should just roll up on you and take you lightly. And if you see someone out there that basically that they have a style that you want to emulate, you can form a relationship with that person. The reason I'm adamant about that, I remember G&E getting squired that Friday, basically trying to give directions on the field. Nobody listened. I got a belt Saturday morning. Then all of a sudden, everything that I said was valid. You know, the same mind, just one day older. All of a sudden, people are listening to me because I have a red belt, and that really shouldn't have been the case.
I've heard that a few times about when either the belts or awards happen and suddenly it's like, oh wait, you can listen. What I've said hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Reinhardt and then Benjamin.
So I think in some parts of the kingdom, there's no men-at-arms. In some kingdoms, it doesn't exist at all. It's really a personal type relationship. My knight personally, Sir Angus, viewed it as a squire. It is a normal thing to take a men-at-arms because it also trains the teaching aspect. When a squire becomes a knight, he doesn't magically start to know how to teach. So it is also by taking a men-at-arms, it forces you as a squire to review your own basics and help you develop your own base by training somebody else to bring up for a squire. And again, as I'm saying, it's really personal. My knight viewed it as, well, my job in taking a men-at-arms is to make them worthy of becoming a squire for my knight. That does not only cover combat. It includes basically making a Scadian out of them, but it also covered from the basics and slowly up. So you yourself train yourself as being a teacher. That's how we see it up here in pretty much like the area I'm from.
All right, Benjamin, and then we will go to our next question.
So I'd just like to quickly disagree with what Trent had to say. As a non-squired OTC, I think you should underestimate me.
It's like, please do.
I had someone come to my practice when I was Knight Marshal, and he spent all day fighting. There were 2 dukes there. There were several knights there, several squires there. I was the only person that didn't have a belt, and we did a bunch of passes, and I did quite well against him. And he came over to me and went, "Wait, so I think I figured it out. I'm underestimating you because you're not a squire or higher." Okay. So yes, as a non-squire, please disregard everything I have to say and underestimate me in a fight.
That is not unlike being an unbelted royal peer. Trust me.
So that means you get freebies, right?
Yeah, exactly. I actually just get to point at people and say you're dead. Because if I had a belt, you would be.
Okay, to add to that, at some point in the fighting, the belt doesn't matter anymore. You're just going to kill the person whether what color belt they wear. It doesn't matter.
Funny thing also, though, and I don't know about you guys.
We're never getting to question 2, by the way.
Oh, it'll happen.
That's another thing, because some men-at-arms, like for us up here, a men-at-arms wear a blue belt. And I've seen other places where men-at-arms wear like a normal black belt with the insignia of their squire. I've also heard of knights taking on men-at-arms as a trial to see if it goes to becoming a squire. So
Yes.
there's more than one meaning, and there's more than one version of what a man-at-arm is, depending on who you ask.
That's one of those wonderful moments of interkingdom anthropology that Anton will go, because I know out west when I was there, was the man-at-arms was usually like you do the man-at-arms first to see if you can get to, if you work, then it's the squire, and then you go from there, because that's the way it worked in Ontir. I can't speak for the west and things, but that's more your thing, Anton.
And to be honest, there's no official definition anywhere of what makes a squire or what makes a man at arms, right? And that's important to keep in mind. You know, I have been a squire. I have been someone's not my squire in that they were my knight in all ways. We had just not made an official relationship out of that. I have been then in fealty to that knight. I then gave a belt back to that knight because I became a prince, and it wasn't proper to be in fealty to a foreign knight. And then took back that belt after the fact, even though I was no longer in fealty to my knight. As a royal peer, I then technically outranked my knight and was in fealty to the crown. So it's really fluid. For me, usually man at arms is a test or tentative or trial, whereas squire usually implies fealty, and there can be cases where it doesn't. But for me, usually a squire is in fealty to a knight, but that doesn't have any bearing on their skill. You know, you could have someone who was day one squire, or someone who's been around for 15 years as a squire, and usually you could tell the older that belt is, the more you need to worry about it. You know, when that red belt starts to look brown, then I'm more concerned about the shiny, nice new red one usually.
Well, some of us have had nice shiny red belts that have gotten brown and dingy and really disgusting, and then we make a new one, and people are like, "Oh, what's that?" And 2 or 3 cycles of this,
The cycle continues.
you just give up.
Some of us just try not to let our regalia ever start to look brown and dusty and dingy.
Ooh.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
On that note, let us move on to question 2.
Well, considering Anton constantly giving me pretty stuff,
gotten easier since
That's a member of the Fancy Lords in the making. Right there.
it's gotten easier since I got the leather shop. All right.
There you go. All right, question 2. This is an order that appreciates weapons depth as well as excellence in your preferred form. How do you decide when it's time to show off your weapons depth versus relying solely on your primary form?
Ooh.
All right, Reinhardt first, and Talon, I want you to come in on this, and then Trent.
So I was mainly sword and board when I got an OTC. I feel as if I busted through that without really needing to branch out in another thing. I was lucky, I guess, but the order knows what the order wants, and normally you're going to start to have pointers from other people in the order telling you, hey, so how about that greatsword, or how about that polearm? Can you, like, what can you do? So if you're starting to get pointers like that, listen, take it into account, and try branching out in other stuff. That's basically what I'd say.
Talon?
Yeah, so prior to me getting this, Mari Katsu was poking at me, says, what's your greatsword like? I said, let's play. And he found out. I've learned anyone who knows Barry, I've learned spear from him. I say weapon depth is very good to have, but the order said the award itself is based on a form. But if you get getting poked in other directions and your friends are saying things you usually don't hear from them, take it as a clue and do the other things. They're trying to tell you something.
All right, Trent, and then Titus, and then I want to talk a couple things because Titus and I both try to use everything. Trent?
So I'm primarily greatsword of polearm, but I had a conversation with Uric, and it was less about weapons depth and more about trying new things, like, you know, trying different techniques, etc. And I think this applies here. He says there are times when you're being watched, and there's times when, you know, you're trying new things. He instructed me from now on to, when you're at a practice, that's the time to try things. That's the time to like experiment, try different weapons. If you're at an event and you're worried that eyes are on you, that's when you go for what you know. That's where you play with your strongest forms, because you're probably going to be judged on it, whether you know it or not.
I'd like to add one more thing to that.
Yeah, Talon?
Sure. The other facet, if you get familiar with the other weapon forms, like if you're a sword and shield and that's all you do, you might be good against poles, but if you pick up the pole and learn how to fight shields, I think your shield game will get stronger because now you know what the other forms can do to you, and vice versa.
Yeah. Titus?
So I may ruffle some feathers when I say this, but there is no one true weapons form. Learn how to use them all because, as Talon said, you can use that knowledge to kind of beat everybody. I mean, I love sword and board, but I love my spear, and I can use a polearm. So as long as you don't suck with something, and if you do suck with it, try more.
Yeah, that's something that I when I started fighting, people told me like pick one thing, focus on that. I went straight up ADD. I want to try everything, so I did sword and shield one practice, two weapon the next, polearm the next, great sword the next, and I just kept rotating through for the first 2 years. And when I got hurt and came back, my knight at the time said pick two. Pick two that you want to dial in, and those are your go-to. I need to show my best forms, and then still pick up the other ones because in the East, a lot of times when we get to the higher level tournaments in the semifinals and the finals, it turns into matched great swords. It turns into matched pole arms. It turns into those varying styles that if you're a sword and board only, you're going to get thrown for a loop. So if you at least, like the guy said, if you have a working knowledge of it, that also helps if you're in a melee. If I shoot and I'm going to normally block like this to block a spear shot to my face, you now know, okay, I need to fake you here to hit you in the head. It all works out and it all adds up. Anyone else want to chime in?
I've been doing this for a while, and by virtue of that, I've been, spend time on all the forms. Just because you're at practice, some guy wants to work on something. All right, fine, And I know that I hate two sword because I get hit a lot, and that's not my favorite thing. But I'll fight it. I'm like, all right, I'll fight it. I'm not going to be happy, but I'll do it. And I have days where I'm competent, so that's nice. But as you get on in your career, I mean, when the COVID shut down, I was just coming off a knee injury, and I mean, knee replacement. That's a good one to have, not really. And I've been thinking, when we go back, what are we doing? And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try spear and melee because it's something I've never done, and I'm still not 100% sure about the knee. And I don't know if I'm really a fan of running over so much uneven terrain these days. So I'm going to try that and see what it does for me. There's always options.
Yeah. Make sure you got that knee braced when you first get back in too.
It's been the only thing wrong with my knee right now is my mind's trust in it.
Fair.
Mechanically, the knee is perfect.
Okay.
The brain has to feel it.
Yeah. Fair.
No, I'm in great shape. Best thing I ever did.
Awesome.
And I recommend that you get legged a lot so you can just fight from your knees and not have to worry about your knee stability.
Yeah, so that way you become invincible like Lambert is.
I'm
So
currently taking leg shots as kills. Honestly, I am. I'm taking leg shots as kills because when they cut across the knee, they cut through a lot of nerves and stuff.
Okay.
And kneeling in armor is just like, you know what, you win, sport. Just don't. It ain't worth it. Maybe as time progresses, maybe I'll start screwing around with knee fighting again. But for now, I just don't really need it that bad.
Fair. All right, Anthony, want to finish this out there?
Sure. So a couple of ways of looking at that, right? And this is something that is near and dear to my heart, obviously. Firstly, for the OTC, if you're to the Tiger Combatant specifically, the requirements are excellence in one form, or surpassing competence in several. And if you look up several, it means 3. So you got to really kick ass with one weapon, or you've got to be beyond competence with 3, right? So obviously that embraces weapon steps right off the bat. If you're not the best with your weapon, you're good, but you're not the best, and you manage to get comfortably good with 2 other forms as well, you're golden, right? You're a triple threat, which I value. Personally, I obviously fought polearm right off the bat and just screamed through with that, and that's pretty much that's how I earned a Viscounty coronet. That's how I earned my belt for my prowess there. But as far as weapons depth is concerned, there's a couple things to keep in mind, right? Like number one, I definitely decided once I felt I had hit the most that I could do with my glaive, right? If I was, it was after I had become King's Champion. So I've won tourneys, in Kingdom and out of Kingdom. I won a Heroic Champions fight as the King's Champion with my glaive. I looked at it and I thought, I don't have any more prowess to prove with this weapon. I don't. So I picked up a sword and shield and did not pick my glaive back up for, I think it was about 3 or 4 months. I did the century challenge, 100 shots a day for 100 days on a belt with a sword and shield. And I get to say, what happened on day 101? I got knighted. Who knew, right? And sure, that's lucky timing, but it sounds real good when you tell the story, and it's true. But for me, it was very much a matter of, hey, like if I want to be a knight, number one, I don't like it when people are like, "Oh, you're a polearm knight," because no one looks at a sword and shield guy and says, "Oh, you're a sword and shield knight." No one does that. They don't, and I don't like that at all. Number two, if you're going to be a knight, you should be able to teach a new guy anything. I should be able to pick up any weapons form and give them the basics, and I couldn't do that at first. Thirdly, some of the plateaus that I was stuck on, spending that much time fighting sword and shield and picturing myself fighting myself gave me massive keys into new openings and ways to handle guys with a sword and shield. And that's at 8 years in, where I'm about to get belted. I'm still learning basic things by picking up an alternate form. So I will never hold it against someone if they don't believe in weapons depth, but I definitely do consider it an advantage when someone does. And I for one, think it's way better if you can pick up any weapon and be fairly lethal with it. I think that's a pretty cool way to be.
That is a great way to finish that out. And funny enough, when you mentioned the century challenge, that actually goes into our next question. So we have, the question is, I'm throwing 400 shots a day and post to Facebook as a log. I'm guessing he's doing the century challenge that we did. Would that be perceived as begging for attention? If so, how can I approach trying to raise my profile and introduce myself to people in this time of quarantine? I'd like to start this one off because I used to be the guy that would ask everyone, and to an annoying degree when I was coming up. I would ask for this person, that person for help, and asking for help is great. Listening to that help that was given is better. Because when you start asking 6 different people for 6 different advice, the wires are going to get crossed, and the thing you're trying to learn is not going to help. If you're going through the century challenge and you're posting your log saying, I did this day, I did this day, and cool, that shows dedication, that shows what you're doing. Don't spam people with questions. And go from there. Reinhardt?
So if the question is if a person is afraid to look like an attention seeker by doing it, it really depends on what is the intent behind posting it. Most of it actually do it to keep a log and encourage other people to do it. I personally find it inspiring to see people still going through the centuries challenge, and like I've seen other people doing the 400 shots for the consoles now. It was the queens before. It's really inspiring. And it's great to see that other people are doing are still being active in that aspect. I personally will never think unless somebody, like, for example, if it comes to the point that you're at an event and somebody just like comes up to you and like, oh, have you seen I've posted everything about my shots that I've been doing, what do you think of it? Yeah, that's probably taking it too far. But if you're just posting it on log on Facebook, that's fine.
Trent?
It's Facebook. You can listen to it, or you can actually like swipe. That's that's your call. And quite honestly, it's shaming me sometimes. I mean, there are times when I'll like sit down and I'll look and then like, fine, I'll go in the backyard and do something. And, I mean, I really shouldn't need someone else to motivate me. I'll be completely honest. I acknowledge that, but there are times after after a day, it's like, this guy's hungry. He wants my spot. I better get out there, So I applaud anybody who's actually doing it,
I threw 100 shots today. I scrolled 100 memes today. Come on.
Check them thumb leads, right?
Uh-huh.
And if we're in quarantine, we're still going. If folks out there do want help, or if there's a shot you're trying to figure out that is just not working, no matter what you do, take some video, post it up, and we can probably help you figure it out, because
Oh,
you're
and
not gonna know what you're doing. Someone else might be able to see it.
don't ever be afraid to ask other people. I've reached out to certain people who knew people I was trying to copy, who put me in contact, got amazing feedback. Don't ever be afraid to reach out to people for them to teach you stuff, or like, hey, do you know that X person from X kingdom? Can you get me in touch so we can communicate and take it off from there? Most fighters, I don't know any fighter who doesn't at one point is not interested in showing what they're doing.
It's almost like you could do like a virtual adoption. You're interested in showing something. I can do that. Let me show you. Let's set up a meet me or Zoom, and let's go.
One of the marvels of modern technology that we've been using during this entire thing. We're separated. We can still help each other out, especially if you're living, even after this is all done, and we're back to events and we're back to practices. If you live away from Kingdom Center and you still need a hand, reach out to one of us, any of us, OTC, or any fighter. If you need help, give us a shout. We'll give you a hand.
And for one of the things I do think has been really wonderful about quarantine, because there's got to be something positive, right? The number of people who are talking about what they're doing and showing what they're doing and developing a language to talk about and describe their actions and describe how they're doing things has been phenomenal. Because there's people who are like, oh, let me show you this. And they show you like, huh, you definitely did a thing. But when they have to break it down and find words to describe exactly what they're doing, it makes it much more accessible, and also makes it so that people who don't necessarily learn by, I saw it once and therefore I can do it, have a different way to think about learning it. And there's a number of different fight groups and a number of different practice groups and things dedicated to, I'm doing these following tasks to get better as a fighter or get better in my art, that are developing new language, and it's fantastic to watch that.
Oh, right.
And I've lost all the words to describe what I'm talking about. Dum-bum.
All right. This is going to be a question for the Shield users. I'm still carrying around my old plywood heater, but I'm thinking about buying/making a new shield. Aluminum versus steel versus plastic, center grip versus strapped. Anyone want to take the input? Start, Colin, and then Talon, and then Reinhardt and Titus.
And one of the things that I love about what we do is we're always very open to sharing what we have. And if you express interest in somebody's gear, 9 times out of 10, they'll show you. Sometimes they'll let you throw it on. Sometimes they'll let you go fighting it. It's crazy. And equipment like that, those are really amazing gauntlets. Oh yeah, you could try these on. These are slight, and you have the conversation. Shields are like that. Shields are like that. If you see a shield you're interested in, here you go, buddy. Take it for a spin. Here, let me try yours. So I've been a very traditional East Kingdom Northern Army, kite shield, what a lot of kingdoms would call war shields, for my career. And yeah, a couple months ago, just before things got shut down, I picked up a center grip, and I'm like, okay, so this is weird, but it's fun. So if you want to try a shield, instead of going through all the rigmarole of spending the time, money, and aggravation doing it, again, this is COVID, I get it, but people are always willing to let you try stuff, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about it.
Definitely. Reinhardt?
Yeah, so I sold my soul to Scutum center grip. It is an amazing shield, but before that, I passed through a wide variety of shield. I had a strapped shield at one point, like the typical blood guard eater type thing. So it is my belief that a shield is probably one of the most personal thing that a fighter can have, up from weight, size to the inch to. So until you find that perfect balance of what you like, you should be experimenting on stage, exactly like Kelvin said. You should, like, you see a shield that you might be interested in, can I take it for a spin, can I try it? So you can actually know what your comfort zone is. As far as material is, keep away from wood unless you're a very good you know, somebody who does very sturdy shields or anything like that. I tend to go more towards metal or heavy plastics. I've also seen people doing it with Kevlar sheets and stuff like that. Anything that'll last. That's going to be able to, because wooden shield normally chip at the edge, and I have a shield made of airplane aluminum, right? It's not supposed to bend, and in corners it's banged because of the pole arm strikes. So imagine what it would do with a wooden shield. I also recommend keeping your shield more on the heavy side than on the light side, and for the simple fact that the East Kingdom is a melee centered kingdom, and having a paperweight, like a very lightweight shield, will just make you be a ragdoll in melees. So a heavier shield is probably more advisable, but that's my personal take on it.
All right, Talon, and then Titus.
I use a 24 by 36 T77 aluminum shield I got from Ice Falcon over 10, 15 years ago. I mean, you can use wooden shields. I was just using like rawhide edging, if you want to go that route, with chart channels along the side, rope, rawhide, indestructible, heavy. The heater shield. Now, as everyone says, these things are personal. I tried the VDK style kite shield. I couldn't use it to save my life. I was really out of my depth.
Literally.
Yes. Example is I went to Penzic with it. And then I went to Berkeley with my regular heater shield. And some knight said, "You're doing much better," because I'm using the shield I am instinctive with and I know how to use. And that's going to be a thing. And I've been told center grips are a lot of fun. You should try it. That's cool, but that means retraining all what I know how to do. And I'm really comfortable with my shield. I can do all sorts of amazing things with it. Shield snags, punch and snags, press with against a pole arm, blind hide my shot against with it. There's a bunch of tricks that you get with these shields, but mine is strapped across the body. Center grip, I can't shield snag. It'll just tilt away. It's going to be personal to you. You got to feel comfortable with it. Make it part of your offensive weapon capabilities, if that makes sense to people, because it's not there just to block. You can do an active block against your opponent. He's about to fire a shot, jam his basket hilt with your shield. Watch him have to reset while you got a free hand to do something with. Make it part of your offense, but know what you can do with it. Know what its limitations are. Know how to fight against it. I prefer the lighter shields to the heavier shields, they are right. You will get rocked around, but if you're solid defense with your sword as part of your shield, because that has to be my overhead defense against poles, against where you got the VDKs, they got the big passive head defense that makes them beasts on the field versus what I have to do. But I wouldn't trade my shield for anything else. I love it. It's amazing.
To be fair, the light shields I was referring to, the heavy shields was referring to more Scudum and center boss compared to strapped shield, because you have all the strength of the shoulder,
right?
Everything in it. When you only have the center boss, you don't have any strength. Like
Correct.
I literally need to take my my basket hilt and jam it on the back of my shield to be sure it doesn't.
Right.
It's not
against your style shield. Right. If I'm fighting you, I can punch into your shield.
Yeah.
And watch it pivot like a rotating door.
Yeah.
And I want to use that because that's a weakness of that shield style. But it's also highly maneuverable. If I only get offside leg, you have an easier time of crossing over to block. So each has their strengths and weaknesses. Not one is better than the other. It's depending on what skill you develop to use the shield as effectively as you can. And I prefer lighter over the heavier.
Since we're on the subject of shields, and just before Titus does his bit, I actually grabbed my favorite shield that I've used for the last, off and on for the last 6 years, is just 24-inch round HDPE plastic. It's light, it's great. The thing with shields like this is you need to be a lot more active in your defense and a lot more active in your motion than like with a heater shield, like with what Talon has. But as you can see, it's not flat anymore. So keep that in mind when you're investing. If you want something for longevity, invest in one of the metal aircraft aluminum shields. You get the right ones, they're going to last you forever. If you're a kind of guy that is more focused on period accurate in your kit, go with a Baltic birch and go with the rawhide method and rope that Talon talked about. It all depends on what your budget is and what your level of commitment to the kit is, and if you want to have something period accurate or if you're just going to go with what's practical. Joys of the SCA, we're anachronistic. Pick what works. If you want to be a Viking with a heater, go for it. You do you. Titus?
So for years, I did fight with a strap shield. I switched over to a center grip oval probably 2 years ago. I was told at one pal never to fight with my strap shield again. Yep, I'm talking about you, Reinhardt. Because I fought him in the morning with the strap shield and then switched to my center grip in the afternoon and made a little difference.
Little.
But no, my shield is plastic. I cover it up with some lovely wood grain paper on the back so nobody can tell that it's plastic, but make it look good. Use it. Maneuverable.
Yeah. All right,
Better is better.
There you go. Reinhardt, and then we're going to close this one out with and Benjamin, and then Anton.
Titus can probably vouch for this, but don't keep to shields don't need to be a specific shape. I remember Titus having a very funky, weird shaped shield that was the death of me. And other people, like, for example, Matthew MacGyver, he used the little points on top of his shield. There's no one master cast that every shield should be looking like. You can, sky's the limit as long as it's not dangerous. So, but just honestly, just try it out, experiment. That's about it.
Benjamin, and then Anton.
Okay, so I'll be quick. So as a polearm primary, I have 9 different shields in my basement right now.
You're as bad as me. I've got like 7 here.
So, but as a polearm primary, I also have 5 or 6 different polearms that I use depending upon what I'm doing and what the situation calls for. So I wouldn't say pick one shield this is the shield that I always use. pick a shield based on the scenario and what you're trying to accomplish and how you want to fight that fight, how you're going to be engaging people, whether it's melee, whether it's singles, whether you're part of the run team, whether you're part of the I'm holding a door team. Depending on what you're doing, different tools for different things. I do the same thing with my pole arms. Like I fight with a nice 5 foot, 5.5 foot pole arm. If I'm one-on-one in a 10-foot list, I fight with a 7.5 footer if I'm running around in the field battle, right? So don't get too locked into this is my shield, this is my only shield, and this is how I'm always going to do things. There's a difference between what I'm using for this fight and how do I use it for this fight. And it's just a tool. And when we were talking about weapons depth before, a shield, not all shields are equal. And I don't think enough attention is given to when you talk about whether I can use a shield or not. Like, well, I can use a buckler, I can use a strap shield, I can use a center grip. Like, I can use different things depending on what scenario I'm in, and that's weapons depth too.
Yeah.
See, I said it was quick. Done.
Buckler for the win. Anton.
So shields are definitely very regional, right? And for me, I dislike fighting sword and shield forever. I fight glaive primary, which means that I'm used to using two hands independently, and I can move these and do all kinds of things with two hands moving around themselves in any orientation that I want, right? Growing up in the East, and I mean, as speaking generally, and it has changed a lot more in recent years, which is cool. But 10 years ago when I started fighting, it felt very much like, welcome to the East Kingdom. This is your personalized 24 by 36 inch heater. It is strapped. Have a great day. And that was by and large what you'd see most people carrying. I think it's probably still the most common shield you're going to see overall in the East. They're pretty common at 8 and belt and Atlantia too, although 8 and belt is definitely a lot more center grip from what I've seen recently. And I'm seeing a lot more center grips everywhere, honestly, in the places that I've seen them a lot, unless you're on tier. And then it's all, like 24 to 36 inch rounds because they're all Vikings, right? Lots and lots of Vikings and on tier. But since I was always exposed to 24 by 36 heaters, I hated fighting with a sword and shield because I'm used to being able to do all this. And now I've got this boat anchor strapped right here. And if I want to do anything with this hand, I need to work around this big, terrible thing that's in my way all the time. And that was it. And I tried learning a couple times, and every time I picked it up, I hated it. And then I tried the standard, VDK kite, because Sir Cullen being my knight and Uncle Duke Sir Brennan being my uncle, I was going to learn how to fight with a VDK kite. And I had one when I was Prince. I had a pretty printed one, a pretty painted one that Cullen had done for me, and I was terrible with it. I couldn't use it. And then one day I picked up a center grip, and suddenly all those times that I could do stuff with my glaive, I can do this with a shield now, right? Like there's nothing better than standing here like this and suddenly punching your shield across and throwing the offside, just like you'd throw an offside cut with a glaive if you were cutting over, right? Like, and suddenly my shield's here and I'm throwing from behind it and everything's great. And I went, oh, wait a minute. This is actually fun, right? So different shields, entirely different styles, entirely different feelings. So like if you hate fighting with a sword and shield, definitely try some different shields. I love fighting with center grip. It is a ton of fun. I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy doing it. And I love heavy shields. I can tell you that one of the most hilarious moments I ever had was fighting His Grace Havek Bender from the West, who has a very, 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 very tiny little triangle shield. And it's like a buckler. It's like this big. It's like his little Dorito. And you're like, I have a glaive. He's a big dude. He's really good. He's really fast, but it's tiny. I'm going to blow that thing away. Like I'm going to hit so hard, I'm going to swing straight through it. And I fire straight into that thing and my glaive just sticks to it. And it doesn't rebound. It doesn't move. Nothing happens. It is the absolute death of all momentum in the universe. It has its own gravity like a black hole. It just sticks there. And he, with his very long arms, just sort of leans forward and hits me very matter-of-factly, leans back. And I stood there looking very confused. This little triangle shield probably weighs 9 pounds.
Yeah, it weighs almost as much as a helmet.
So like you hit that thing and just nothing happens, right? So weight to your shield, very important for a strapped, as I was said there. Like if it's strapped to you, you've got all of your body and your skeleton to use to support it. If you don't have it strapped to your body and you need to move it, you need it to be heavier. You want it to suck up shots. When people have center grips that are aluminum and I can hear it or see it, I can blow straight through them, and I plan on it with a glaive. It's also important to note, if you see people are smart, well, if they will roll that center grip back onto their forearm when they need to either punch out with it or to keep it secured, because I know I've learned to do that. But echoing a lot of what has been said, shields are super personal. I hated Sword and Shield until I found the right kind of shields for me. Doesn't mean I'm really good with it, but it does mean it's a lot more fun. And really, that's probably the most important part.
Have you tried putting it on your other arm? Sorry.
Look, I'm already bad enough with a Sword and Shield. About the only
It
advantage
is a
I
fair
have
question.
is that I'm a lefty. Okay,
It is a fair
a lefty
question.
is about the only sneak attack bonus I get. That's about it.
We'll stick with our lefty shenanigans. Thank you there, Benjamin. All right, next question. Does working as a trainer for fighting have any bearing in what the order is looking for? I think I want to start with this and say, like, does working as a trainer specifically have any bearing? Maybe not. But if you're putting the time in and you're helping train and you're helping foster the next generation of fighters and you're an active participant in the kingdom, you're not just a hot stick that shows up on tournament day, blows up everyone, and then walks away. I mean, that's some people still have it, but if we're seeing you teaching and training and helping folks in your area and helping folks when you're fighting, that's gonna look better, at least for me, than someone who's not gonna be helping out. Trent, Reinhardt, and then Benjamin.
You said it best. They still have to have it. They can't just be a trainer.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is, there was an earlier question about campaigning, about trying to be noticed. If you're a hot stick and you're training others, you are friggin' noticed. You will be noticed without even trying. So if you have that combo, it's not something that I'm looking for, but it's something that'll put you on my radar immediately. You know.
That's a good way of putting it. Reinhardt?
You guys pretty much already said it. Being a teacher it does not weigh in when the order takes their decision. It does not weigh in between yes and no. The order, as mentioned, is excellence in one weapon form, or being more than competent in several, and that's basically it. Being a trainer, as Trent has said, will probably help you be a bit sooner on the radar, but as far as does it help you get in the order, no.
All right, Anton, and then Benjamin.
The Order of the Tiger's Combatant is really interesting because, and someone had mentioned it earlier. I think he's actually watching YouTube right now. I think it's Fergus that mentioned it to me. Not realizing that having orders that were polling orders that were not peerages is not super common, right? Like across the known world. We do it in the East for our high merit grant orders, but it's not a very common thing. A lot of people think it's crazy. You know, a lot of people don't believe that's a thing. So for me, having the fact that it's a polling order plays into how you're going to determine a candidate, right? By the words, you are required to show excellence in one form or surpass competence in several. And like I quoted that earlier, I've quoted it plenty of times. I've quoted it when we're discussing candidates and regularly, right? Because that right there is what's needed to be a member of the order. And I add one other caveat, because it is a polling order, right? And if you're in a polling order, it means that the people in that order have determined you are a part of it. It means that you represent that order. That means that there is one other caveat that I apply. You need to not be a dick. You need to be someone that I can say yes to. You don't need to be great. I don't even need to like you personally, right? But you need to be someone that, in my opinion, I can say yes for, and you're not going to bring down the name of the group. That doesn't mean you need to teach. It doesn't mean you need to do service. It doesn't mean you need to be an artist. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't even mean I need to like you, right? I have voted yes for OTC candidates that I don't like. Maybe there are even some in this AMA. Who knows? regardless, right?
I thank you for
Whether I
that,
like you or
Anton.
not doesn't matter, right?
I thank you for
Whether I
that,
like you or
Anton.
not doesn't matter, right? Whether you do service, whether you do training for the OTC, you need prowess. Period. This is a fighting award, and when we start talking about peerage, that's an entirely different conversation, but it's not the one we're having, right? If you're looking to be an OTC, if you're looking to earn that accolade, it is prowess based. So for me, if you've got prowess, and I feel comfortable with you representing that order and putting your name next to mine, don't even need to like you, then I'm okay with it.
Benjamin?
So I kind of, my perspective on how I got to be an OTC is I kind of backed into it because I was not striving for it. I was doing a job as night marshal for my local shire. And so I was running 3 practices a week. I'm in a shire with 4 or 5 dukes, a number of knights. I ended up taking over night marshal because nobody would step in and take the job. I came in as an unbelted fighter with no affiliations, had been in the East Kingdom for a year and a half at that point, having moved from out of kingdom. And my perspective on what the job was to teach whoever came to practice. There were private practices being held by members of the Shiv locally that other people weren't invited to. And so I ended up with all the newbies and all the people who'd never fought and all the people who weren't welcome at all of those household practices. And it became well, somebody's got to teach and no knights are showing up. And I'm the one with the keys to the practice space. So I guess I'm teaching. And that's why I became a polearm primary, because I was fighting sword and shield, and I had a fighter who came and was diligent, coming for about 4 or 5 months, and finally reached a point when they said, I'm done with this. I can't fight sword and board. I really want to fight. This is awful. And I went, I've got some really shitty gauntlets. Like, why don't we try polearm and see how that works? And maybe it's something different. And we spent a few practices playing polearm, and now I'm a polearm primary because actually it worked really well for me. And the whole process of teaching that fighter how to behave with a polearm, and we kind of learned together. And eventually other people started showing up, and there were some knights who started coming and some dukes who started coming and some people who started meeting their squires at my practice because it was convenient for them. And it became a place that other people started coming. But I very much feel that teaching and training and understanding what's going on and spending the time working with new fighters is hugely important to being a quality fighter and getting to the point where, yeah, I didn't come in as a hot stick. I didn't come in and blow people away as I'm an incredible athlete and I'm incredibly naturally skilled. I came in as fuck, I'm fighting 3 days a week and thank God something stuck. And I finally am able to hit some people with some power and do some things right. And I've played with enough people who have enough different styles and enough different preferences and enough different things that they bring to the game that I understand how to make bits and pieces of that work for me. And I also, the Order of Chivalry does not give any, and I say this as not a member of the Order of Chivalry, and so people feel free to correct me, but my feeling of the Order of Chivalry is you don't get to be a member of the Shiv because of your teaching. There are great teachers who are Shiv, but that's not what gets you there. You get there because you kill people. But I don't think that gives enough credit to, you look at great fighters throughout the years, like Mike Tyson. There's no Mike Tyson without Customato. And we have no award that is the Customato Award. Uh, you know, there's great coaches, there's great people who can see what you're doing, who can advise what you're doing, who can think about what you're doing and show you how to do it better, that maybe can't do it themselves. So I think that from my perspective, and when I think about people, when I vote on people, it's very much about, that is an aspect of it. Yes, I expect if you're an OTC that you can kill people, but I do feel that teaching people and understanding the fundamentals of what you're doing is hugely important. One of the most heartbreaking conversations I had with a member of the Shiv was when I asked him to show me something, and he said, "Oh, you want me to teach you something? I'm not that kind of knight, man." Like, oh, okay.
See, by
So
my expectations, like that person should be an OTC and not a knight, right? Like that's just that there's a distinct difference in in the two things. One is a prowess-based order, period. And the way I always refer to the chivalry is that it is a human award with a fighting requirement. The prowess gets you the interview.
No.
I like that.
That's a very cool way to say it.
Yeah.
Hey, Benjamin,
Yes.
when you ran those practices, you did a really good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know if you get enough thanks for those things.
Thank you.
You kept that group going and moving, and you put a lot of work into it, and you did good things.
To be fair, I think I give most of my credit to Sir Arnwolf, because when the people who were the really high-end fighters started coming, it was not because of me. It was because he went out and said, hey, there's this practice space and people should start showing up at this shit. So thank you. And I did my best to open the doors on time. But there were absolutely people who were way better than me who took the time and built that practice and put in the hours to get the people there for it. But thank you.
You're welcome. You did good.
That's one last thing I want to talk about is like folks like Benjamin that run practices. If you guys are pushing and you guys want to get up to that next level, make sure you're putting the time for yourself at practice to turn off teaching mode. You can spend half your practice teaching, guiding, go through things, but you still need the time to switch off teacher brain and go into fight mode, so that way when you get to tournaments and you get to higher level, you can dial it in and you're not dialing it back against someone you fight at practice because, oh, right, I'm teaching. No, you're not teaching them at that point. Dial it in, do the thing.
And it is worth at those practices. We used to do it like a Burka prep. Like, you know, we would have 2 practices prior to Burka that were, okay, we're doing Burka tourney practice.
Yeah. And
if you show up for this, that's what this is. We're not teaching tonight. This is, we're just jamming on people. And that is an important part of teaching too. So you're absolutely right. You got to spend time working on your own prowess and working on yourself. But part of that is teaching tournaments and teaching how do you go into this, and how do you deal with, we're in a melee situation, we're in a tournament situation. Like having a tourney brain is an important thing.
And that's a big thing that when we teach, because when we teach this game is we're unique in the martial art that we do in that there really isn't a structure to it like most martial arts. When we get a new person and they want to fight sword and shield, cool. What kind of shield? How are you going to move? That's going to change. How they're going to fight with a polearm, because you can put, for the polearm guys that are here, you put me, Trent, Anton, and Benjamin in a line and tell us to fight our way. You're going to get 4 very different dances with that weapon. Same with Reinhardt and Titus. Taking the time to teach new folks about tourney brain, about teaching them like, okay, this is what practice is like, this is what a tournament is like, and showing that contrast is something I think we need to start doing more when COVID is over, and start teaching, being more active in teaching as opposed to, oh, there's a new person, put them in loner armor and send them to the wolves. That doesn't.
I don't think that happens much anymore.
Oh, I've seen it a few times and I've had to pull some people aside. So that's something I want to make sure we're doing for the future so we can retain the new people we get.
But I've also had conversations with people where they've said, you need to understand during fighting practice, I'm hitting at like 30% of what I can hit. Because they're hitting and it's, that's a telling blow. Like there's no question, I got hit. But when they decide that, no, now we're in the unbelt fight, or we're in the heroic champions fight, like they're hitting differently than they do when you go to practice, because in practice you're getting hit a lot more often. Like I go to practice and I get hit a lot. I go to Penzic, I get hit at Penzic as many times as I get hit in one practice.
Yeah. All right. Let's have a look here what we've got for questions. Well, actually, There's a cal. Actually, I want to talk about this with you guys because we're talking about practice. We're talking about practice versus tournament. I want to take a minute to talk about how you guys deal with calibration issues. How you go and how you communicate to someone. It's like, okay, well, you're hitting someone. Say you hit someone 3 times clean, and you think it's a good blow. How do you handle that? And they're not taking it. Trent,
Um,
and then Reinhardt.
you could just, I stop a fight and just say, okay, hit me with something you think I should take. And then I do the same to them. And it's like, okay. And if it's like, so that's where it is. Okay. So then, and we just start up again. And then now I have a point to actually question. It's like, that was pretty much where I was, or a little harder than the one that you said you'd take. What was different? And I just ask, not accusatorily, just ask them, what are they feeling different? There could be adrenaline. It could be a dead spot in armor, and
Could be a
I
dead stick.
give them outs, basically, like, make these suggestions so it doesn't look like I'm actually trying to put them on spot, and see where it goes from there.
Reinhardt?
Well, it's pretty much communication. Always, if you feel something is iffy, just communicate either from your side or the opponent's side. Talking about it after the fight is always a bad idea. It's because, like, talking about it with your friends around the fire will just don't do that. Just, if you have an issue, address it as soon as it comes up, so it's fresh in memory. Also know your own weaknesses. So, for example, I know certain shots that I tend to give on the lighter side. So when normally I throw them and people don't really take them, I'm like, okay, it's probably because I didn't put more power, just more juice next time. So know your own shortcomings, and don't ever be afraid to discuss then and there when you have calibration issues. Don't let it fester and take it elsewhere, or talk about it later. Just talk it now. Marshals are always there also to give their own inputs during a fight. That's why normally, for example, in tournaments, you'll see when the hold is called, the marshal, the fighters will hold it together, the marshal will walk forward. The marshal will give his input if asked, but normally he's more of a passive, and marshal will also, most of the marshals I've seen will also mediate what's going on between the two fighters, trying to keep tempers down, trying to see, like, if any decisions can be taken, or otherwise just, all right, you've talked enough about it, let's get back to it, and everybody starts back.
But that's just to say one thing, but that's just tournaments.
Oh, well,
you keep saying
yeah.
marshals. So
You're right. In melees, it's another thing.
I mean, even at practice, because there's not really actively a marshal.
No, you're right. You are correct for that. Well, in practices, normally you're fighting with people that you know, so you should have the issue to go up to them and talk to them. If you don't know how to talk to somebody, don't be afraid to go see somebody and ask them, like, hey, can you just, I feel uncomfortable. Can we just, like, open dialogue? Can you help me open dialogue with this fighter? I know a lot of people have normally peer fight. They normally hesitate. The person's wearing a white belt. He didn't take my shot. He probably knows better. If you feel your shot was right, don't hesitate to address it, or ask somebody's help to address it. There's no wrong way about it.
Benjamin, do you have your hand up for this too? And then Colin.
I didn't specifically, and I've been talking a lot, so.
Okay.
I just had a brief observation.
Okay. Colin, then Talon.
At practice, guys, there's a marshal. There's a marshal.
Yeah.
Yes, but a marshal is not watching like 9 fights at the same time.
Right, but
So.
you can certainly, if you have an issue and it becomes repetitive, you can certainly walk over to the marshal and say, will you watch me fight this guy? Because there's something screwy going on over here. And a lot of times when that happens, you go, you do your fight, and the marshal come over here, guys, come here. Followed by the sentence. This looks bad. That's usually the starting point.
Talon?
I was told hit them harder. If they blow the shot, hit them harder. They obviously may have a different calibration than you do, because as like if you travel and do fights in different parts of the kingdom, or you're like going to Adult Swim, calibrations are going to be different from what people take. So if you hit someone and they don't take it, I was taught hit them harder. If you know you've cleaned their clock and they don't take it, at that point I might back off and say, I'm sorry, help me understand something. I may have thrown this off. Maybe it's my technique, but what did you think? So you don't make it feel like you're accusing them, but you're not directly, you're getting to think about the shot, and then instead of being in the adrenaline moment, if that makes sense.
It can, but to a certain point, the hit 'em harder method doesn't work. Because when you're fighting your fight, if we're fighting and fighting is a scale of 10. If I'm normally fighting, 6 or a 7 is going to be a telling blow. It's going to be hard enough that if you take the hit, it's going to be good, cool, everything's good. If I'm going to ramp it up to like an 8 or a 9, I will never ramp it to a 10. If it's that point, I will bow, concede the fight, and go from there. Because there's something going on, whether it's the armor is working too well, might be a dead stick, it might be something else, but never escalate it to the point where there's going to be an injury.
No, I'm not saying to the point of injury, but you can definitely drive more force if you need to, but not to the point of injury. No, never, ever.
Oh no, I'm not even talking about injury to your opponent. I'm talking injury to yourself, because if you're trying to throw a weird offside technique and you're trying to dial it up and you're not 100% used to it, you might hurt yourself before you hurt anyone else.
No.
Reinhardt?
Also for calibrations, normally the way I gauge it is if a person, how can I explain this? A person should be able to kill themselves with the blow they give. I've seen a lot of people being like taking heavy shots, but only being able to give light shots. In my opinion, that's strange. A person should always be like the heaviest blow that they throw should be their calibration for impact. They should not be doing light shots and not taking your heavy shots technically. But I'm probably explaining it lost in translation somewhere, but yeah, I'm hoping it makes sense to some of you.
It does. Benjamin and then Anton.
So to speak to the hit 'em harder concept, like that works great for us. I mean, for people on this call, right? If you're a starting fighter, if you're new at things and you're landing a shot and you know it's a good shot and it was clean and you think your technique was good, the concept of hit 'em harder, well, I mean, I've been there. Like I've hit people and like, I'm never going to lay a stick on that dude again. But that one I hit was good and he didn't take it. And I don't know why he didn't take it. Like the idea of just hit 'em harder doesn't translate down to people who haven't gotten to the OTC or higher level. And you need to be able to speak to that and need to be able, as someone who's up and coming, to have a conversation that, you know, our game is very much based on long memory. I know people who have been holding grudges for over 30 years. And you know, that's just our game. Like if you insult a knight right now and say, dude, I hit you, why the fuck didn't you take it? Pardon me, why the F didn't you take it? Is that better? Then
our one.
Sorry. Then they're going to remember that. And that's going to come back and haunt you potentially down the road. So it is unfortunate that when you're speaking to power, you have to be able to speak respectfully, and you need to be able to ask a question and turning it into, hey, I thought that was good. Can you explain to me why that wasn't? Like, is an easier way to be respectful and possibly learn something. And having come from the ranks of people, like I ran around with a bunch of people for a long time who weren't hitting the major practice and weren't hitting the major fighters and got super ticked off because Shiv never take our shots. Then I started playing with knights and yeah, you know what? It's because we weren't hitting him. Like, and then I went back and played with him and went, yeah, this is how we hit. Like, this is what you're expected to do. And if I'd just been angry about it and just decided, well, all knights are terrible because they never take my shot, like, well, they shouldn't because I never hit them. So it is an opportunity. Even if you think you're doing the right thing, your technique may not be good. Something might be wrong. You may not be picking something up. And even if it was perfect and they're just blowing you off and it's just an ego thing or whatever is going on there, assuming that they are playing honestly and assuming that they are honorable, which is the core of our game, right? Like assuming that they are being honorable fighters and that it didn't actually land the way you thought it landed is more beneficial to everybody in the conversation than assuming that they're a cheating asshole.
All right. Trent, you had your hand up, and then Anton will close this question out.
I just want to go back to something Reinhard said that, and then and actually Benjamin touched on as far as honor. I want to emphasize, if you have a problem, address it there. Going back and telling stories of this person being dishonorable and this one not taking your shot is just incredibly bad form. Make sure people actually have the chance to actually justify their actions before you go and defame them throughout the rest of the kingdom. There could be a number of reasons. I've actually encountered a combat archer basically declaring that nobody took that person's shot, her shot, the entire day, and we're all dishonorable SOBs. Come to find out that she wasn't hitting people straight on, she was hitting them on the side, and considering we were on a bridge banging into each other, those arrow shots honestly felt like getting bumped from behind. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, she just really badmouthed a couple of people, and it's like, you know, they didn't deserve that. And that carries on to that translates to everything we do. Have the conversation.
And the best fighter in the world is going to miss shots.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I know I've missed shots. I haven't done it on purpose, but I know people have hit me with good shots that I haven't taken. Like, it happens.
If I get hit with something and I miss it and someone looks at me and goes, I got you clean right here, I went, cool, then I'll take it. Done.
Yes. Be
Anton?
honorable, duck out,
Yeah.
do the right thing. You're not technically dead. You can come back and play.
Yeah. Most of our battles are res. I got cardio. I'll just tag in and get back in there.
The woods battle where I looked down and there was a spear tip resting on my cup. What? Oh.
And honestly, I'm pretty sure we've seen.
And thank you.
I was about to say, did you thank him?
I'm pretty sure we've also seen all the whole somebody going down. Please don't take that shot. Like the other way is also possible. So just talk.
All right. Anton, close us out of this question. We'll go to the next one.
Sure. One of the things that I think was a lesson I had to learn, and a lesson I was really glad to learn, in that I get to travel all the time and fight all over the place, is that communication is super key. And when you get to do it as much as I have, because you're all over the place with different calibrations, different people, different styles, different forms, different rules, right? Like, I blew off a dozen shots in a melee the first time I was ever in the West from a dude who was piking me in the side of the head with a spear, right here. Over and over and over and over again. I'm like, this freaking guy, why does he keep hitting me in the side of the freaking head? Like hit me in the face or whatever, right? So afterwards, you know, he finally comes over and he's like, hey, were those not, you know, landing? And I was like, no, yeah, man, they were all on the side of my head. And we're looking at one another like we're talking different languages because we're coming to different conclusions about what's being said, right? Until finally he goes, you're from the East. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, so in the West, thrusts to the side of the head are full calibration. And I was like, I'm exceptionally dead several times over, Your Grace. I apologize. You know, and like, there's nothing you can do but talk stuff out. And you'll find that there are certain phrases that work better than others. You'll find that hit them harder is absolutely valid, but only up until a point, and only if you do it right. You know, I mean, if I hit somebody in the hip once, and it was a nice solid 6.5. It was meaty, it was good, it was everything I needed it to be. It was a practice fight, and they stepped right through it and hit me. So I called good. And I said, hey, how was that hip shot? And they said, oh, I didn't really think there was much on it. Keep in mind, I have a glaive, right? And I said, okay, I felt like that was about a 6.5. That's about exactly what I want in practice. It's enough for me to know that I hit you. It's enough for you to know that I hit you. It's usually enough to maybe push past the corner of a block or something like that. But I don't want to hurt you. So you let me know if I need more. And they said, yeah, you really need to use more. And I said, okay, man, I have a 6.5-foot lever. Physics is on my side. I can hit as hard as you need me to. I'll turn it up, no problem. Next pass, exact same exchange, literally. Faked an offside, had him step out, bang, through the hip, gave him an 8.5. He dropped to his knees and went, oh my God, I was wrong. And he wasn't mad, and I wasn't mean. Maybe I wasn't as nice as I could have been, but I wasn't mean, right? The goal wasn't to hurt anybody.
Were you smiling?
Yes, but I was fighting, so I'm always smiling. So that's just not a
Exactly.
fair accounting, right?
Big cover.
There are a lot
Could
of
you
lines
only
that I
hit me
have
with
found.
sevens from going forward?
I've had times in the finals of a coronet tourney when Kiara and I won and made her a princess, and literally I called back a shot. I said, hey, please don't take that. You were starting to have a conversation with me about another shot, and I absolutely do not want that to be the way that this hit goes down. And they argued with me because they were not paying attention. They started talking to me, and like, as far as I was concerned, that was unacceptable, and we had an argument about it on the field as friends. I've had plenty of times where I've had a disagreement in tournaments, and one of the phrases that I love when we can't come to an agreement about shots, right? And it's not that either of us is angry or arguing. It's that I'm honestly not sure if that shot was good, whether I threw it or I took it. And you're honestly not sure if that shot was good, or maybe we both threw shots and we're both unsure. One of my favorite goes-tos, and it always works, is, hey, do you like fighting? Yeah, me too. So how about we just keep fighting? Then we get to fight more, and we'll figure it out when somebody hits someone the next time, right? Like, totally cool. It works. The things that you need to remember are you're in charge of your honor when you step on the field, not the other guys. You're in charge of your honor and your consorts and your crowns and anyone else that you're in fealty to or that you're representing, and that's what matters the most. So I had a very, very high profile fight. I remember watching the video. I know that I landed a bunch of shots that I felt were definitely good. I'm pretty sure that Renard is in that video after like the 5th shot. You can hear him in the background because I know your voice, man. And I heard, really?
Yep.
I remember it. I remember it vividly.
Yep.
But
Yo.
in that moment, right, my job is not to tell that dude I killed him. I've already hit that guy a couple times that I think are good. Obviously, I can hit him again, right? If I've already hit you a couple times, I don't need to argue with you. I'm just going to hit you some more, and that's okay, right? But what really, really counts is that I try to hit that guy till he falls down, and if he hits me good, I fall down. Those are the only things that I need to worry about, because everybody else knows what's happening, sees what's going on, and most of the time, they know what really happened on the field. That's it.
All right.
That is a good way to close that one out. All right, so next question we've got here: is it easier to be remembered at a smaller event rather than a larger event like G&E? Yes and no. Trent, you want to start us off?
I don't want to embarrass anyone, so I won't say any names. But I know a couple of people who are very famous for just doing smaller events, and I call it, big fish in a little pond syndrome. And they just don't understand why they're not being noticed throughout the kingdom. It's like, because you're not at the bigger events. If you're at a small local event constantly, yes, you're known in your area. But if you're in an area with no Shiv or very few OTCs, who's going to notice you? And just trying to drag that person out of that was a pain. I mean, you're in Halifax, and so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, when you're going to events, we'll get Reinhardt. You'll be up next. Whether it's big or small event, you can make how you're going to be remembered either way. If you're going there and you've got your kit all cleaned up, you've got a very unique setup, that's going to be easier to remember than if you've just got a straight black tunic and a very nondescript helm. And heraldry works. If you've got something on your gear, look behind Talon. He's got his helmet, he's got gear there, the green and white. If I see that on the field, I know it's Talon. Most events I go to, I've got my blue Boreal Army Tirmara set up, so I'm pretty distinct on the field. Look at Trent's gear.
My color.
Yeah.
Discount to Jabril.
Your shield. So when you're out, if your gear is very easy to pick out, it'll be a lot easier for us to remember you. And if we see a video of some fights, we're gonna know it's you. I know Titus has got a very unique setup. Anton is always colorful, whether it's Norse, Landsknecht, or whatever else he's got. It's very hard to miss him.
Franchise, yo. Franchise.
Franchise is a thing.
I don't know. I wear a red shirt and Lamellar.
I often joke about like the 3 steps to getting knighted, and I mean it's totally a joke, but at the same time it's totally true. Step 1 is have fun, because that's literally the point, playing a game. And if you hit the point where you're not having fun and you're on the field, you should probably get off the field and figure out why, because you or someone else is going to get hurt. Number 2 is kick ass. That's the hard part. That takes years to learn and master and dedication. Step 3 is look so good doing it, motherfuckers remember who you are. Because you might come out there and whoop me, but if there's 100 people in armor at that event and there are 7 of them who are in black barrel plastic armor, entirely nondescript, I have no way of letting everyone know who that guy was. It's just how it works.
And back to what Thorne said just quickly, you can have the black barrel armor, but if you have like a tunic over it with your heraldry on it, you didn't spend a ton of money, but now we can ID you. So it's not about dollars.
So
It really isn't. One of the things that's really, really interesting, and I don't think, sorry to cut you off, Reynard, that I don't think a lot of people notice is that I fight nowadays in entirely plastic. Everything I wear is plastic except my helmet, my gauntlets, everything. Because I know people who sew that do great work that can make me look real pretty without having to spend an arm and a leg on really expensive armor. Also, it packs down lighter and travels lighter when you're flying around with it all the time, which is obviously a big bonus, and helps you move faster in my book, but that's a different conversation, right? You don't need expensive armor. You just need it to be distinctive. There's tons of ways to cheaply fancy things up and look good.
If you're OTC material, you'll be OTC material either at a small or a big event. There shouldn't be any difference between your prowess level or the requirements for it. The knights here, though, gave us a very good pointer on how to get noticed more, is stay on the field longer. Normally, the people who like fighting the most will be there the longest. Normally, good fighters will also hang out in the back, and like whether you want it or not, all the camps are normally set up all around the list field or the battlefield. So the fighters will keep hearing the fighters and the fights going on. They'll normally cast a glance, and it's also another good way of having, you know, these veteran fighters who are on the side talking, noticing you and talk about you, who are probably still actively fighting. So just fight the longest, like be the last one off the field, and normally you'll get noticed whatever the size of the event.
All right, Talon, finish this one out, and we got a really good question for the next one.
So you can be in the middle of a melee and do all the melee, and that's one way. I would say do pickups after everyone's done fighting. Go find, there's an OTC, go pick a fight. There's some Shiv, go pick a fight. Go talk to them. Get that face to face. Learn something. Get them to see you not in a blurb of a deadly mass of whirling death, but to see you. And show them what you can do, or ask questions, be inquisitive. Seriously, that's a good way to learn lots of different things from different people. And they get to put some face time to you. They get to look at you in your kit, or maybe you're popping off your helmet to talk. Now I get to see who you are outside of the armor. Because how many people have you walked up to and said, I don't recognize you? And they describe their fighting kit and you go, oh, you're that guy. Yes, we've all done that. So yeah, do pickups, go to other practices outside your comfort zone. PAL is a hall, but I did it. You can go crazy with that as far as you want. You can fight down in Texas if you wanted to. But if you're advanced, do pickups. Do the small, hey, we're going to run some drills after the melees. Do you want to help? Sure, do the thing. That gets you more, allows you to stand out from the crowd, if that were to say, because now people don't have many fighters to focus on the field. They can narrow it down and observe you more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. All right, our next question. This is a good one. Was there a moment that you can remember where it all clicked and you feel that the OTC path was one you were walking or aiming for? Reinhardt, then Colin, and then I want to chime in on this.
So I think that pretty much it was clear that the OTC path for me was one I was walking on, because I love fighting and I like getting better, and being an OTC is some kind of way of validating it. Knowing that it was coming was an entirely different thing. I started fighting along two other amazing fighters, Akan and Lambert, and we always, basically the three of us, were pushing each other, going forward. And the bar was still, because everybody else had graduated at that point. Everybody else that was fighting were already knights. So seeing where the bar of OTC was this easy objective, and that we knew we were going towards it. But achieving it, knowing when we would achieve it, was another entirely different thing. I was the first of the three that received it, and it was kind of weird, because I was like, well, am I worthy of it, or like where do I stand? Whereas the other two knew where the bar was, because I was basically setting the bar for everybody else. So they knew that, well, now I can measure up, since Reinhardt has it, I can measure up to see how I can do with that, so I know where I stand. So it was kind of weird for me. That's basically like how we went through it.
Colin, I think you were next.
Okay. Personally, I was sitting on a hay bale sucking water, and Cedric of Amorica sat down next to me and said, "Hey, Colin." I said, "Hey, what's up?" He says, "You don't suck." And I said, "Thank you." And we chatted some more, and he walked away, and I'm like, "I'm getting my OTC this summer." I mean, it's a silly story, but you just get to the point where, it's like things click. It just, I don't know, it just gels, and everybody has a different relevation, but that was mine.
For me, the moment, I didn't really have much a moment where it clicked that I was on the path. I was driving myself insane chasing it. When I got my Silver Tiger, my brain went, "Oh, what's the OTC's next? What do I do? What do I do? What?" And I started asking, like, what do I have to do to get my OTC? What's the bar? Where do I have to go? And it got to the point where I started hating fighting because I never felt good enough. I never felt like I was ever going to get that bar. And I had a conversation with another Canadian, and he looked at me and basically went, "Why are you doing this? Why do you fight?" Because I love it. It's fun. And where else can I beat up my friends and then have drinks afterwards? Okay, so focus on that. And I stopped thinking what was my next thing to get my OTC, and it turned back into fighting for the love of fighting. And going to events, didn't care if I won or lost. It was just doing it for the love of the game again, and that's when things clicked up, and then suddenly it was like, oh yes, you're getting your OT. I'm sorry, what? The video is still hilarious when I got that. Talon?
So this is going to segue into a different style of question, because now you're starting to think is what is the mental aspect of getting the OTC? And my advice is don't think about chasing the cookie anymore. Work on improving yourself, because if you, and trust me, if someone who got it 19 years later was very bitter about waiting forever, it will drive you it will make you miserable. So stop worrying about the cookie. Don't worry about the shiv, the other belts, whatever the cookies are. They are extrinsic values. Ignore them. You want to focus on the intrinsic values, being a better fighter, being a better person, learning and mastering all the things you need to do. The rest, the extrinsic stuff, will follow the intrinsic stuff. So master the internals and your fighting before worrying about whether I'm good enough to be an OTC. Those will drive you mad. That's a path of misery.
One thing, and then Trent, your VX, is something my grandfather told me. He's been in the SCA since 80s. And something he reminded me of when it came to awards or Shiv or anything is when you get those awards, you're being recognized for what you already are. Be the knight, be the OTC, show them that you are what it is, and you will be recognized for it. Stop chasing it like it's a cookie, like Talon said. Trentus?
For me, it never clicked. I played for years without an advocate. My original knight had a heart attack and stopped playing. And I basically was kind of like adopted like a little brother by several knights and several OTCs. And I just got shown the way by a lot of people. And I just resided to myself that, okay, it's not going to happen. And I'm just going to play. And I loved Melee so much that my big thing was wanting to be that person that people could depend on. Hey, Trent, grab 10 guys and go that way and do X. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to do X. And what was funny was when it happened, one, I was floored, but two, apparently the conversation was, what do you mean he doesn't have it? There were people who were pissed because they'd been following me for the last 3 years because they thought, wait a minute, he's an OTC, he knows what he's doing. Again, back with the red belt. That they were following a person that actually wasn't even an OTC yet into combat. And, you know, it was just, like you said, it was validation on something that I'd been doing for a while. So don't chase it. Just play, have fun, and be competent and confident.
All right, finishing out that one. So the next question we've got here is something that a lot of folks ask us is, we talk about the bar to be OTC. We talk about the level. Do you guys feel that that bar is balanced? And how do we balance it for those that are coming behind us? We use, Anton has said before, what the letter of the law for the OTC is excellence in one form or beyond competence in several. So how do we even out that bar for those coming behind us once post-COVID happens?
How is it not even? It's excellent in a form, or surpassing competency in 3 forms or multiple forms. I mean, there's no way that I don't see not being able to say, okay, this guy knows his X. I mean, fighting someone with an axe, I kind of know what they're going to do with it, what they could do with the axe. And if I'm fighting, you know, it's our job to kind of test them every once in a while. I'll leave a leg out further than I normally would, see if they go for it. I'll, like, you know, keep my weapon lower to see if they come in on that angle. And if they know what they're doing and they're basically showing surpassing competency in that, we'll move to the next. There's no, it's not, he can't beat me, so he's not it. He doesn't have it. That's not that's not what we're doing. So it's competency, and that's evident. If you're a marshal, you know who's competent in a competence in a form. If you're an OTC and someone's seriously hanging with you with a particular form, and you know they're surpassing competence in that form, you know they're probably mastered that form. So I don't see it as a bar, a movable bar. We all know what that bar is. And our conversations that we have when we talk about polling, it's apparent that everybody's on the same page for the most part, except for that one guy who's all about armor.
Well, it's one of those moments where, like, talk about the competency, and then we'll go Titus, Reinhardt, and Benjamin. Like, for me, if I'm working with someone and I'm gauging where they're at, if all they're doing is throwing the same 3 shots, that's not showing mastery of one or competency in several. If we're working with someone and I've got to dig deep in my bag of tricks to defend and keep up with this person, that's someone we got to watch, and that kind of thing. Especially if they're doing that with multiple weapon systems. All right, Titus.
If I have to change my plan in a melee to deal with somebody across from me, I notice them a lot. Yeah, everybody knows what we're talking about. But yeah, if you can do that, then I will notice you. If you are, like you said, making me reach into my bag of tricks, then I will notice you. And that's what I call for a bar.
Reinhardt, and then Benjamin.
So as far as the bar, like if we need to judge prowess and excellence in combat, in an ideal world, it should be a static bar that we noticeably, like, we find out when somebody actually goes over it. Most of the time what happens is that somebody gets in the zone of being past or around that bar, and that's when they get noticed, and they normally gravitate over it. Does the required prowess excellence fluctuate? I think it probably does. Normally it is highly affected by who was the latest to be named an OTC, and it because let's be honest, guys, I've been an OTC for 3 years. I like to think that my fighting got better, so it's kind of hard for me to judge what is the current standing for what an OTC is. In order to better judge that, I'll look and I'll defer my judgment to to those who've been OTC, who've been made OTC earlier. Thank you. I was looking for that word. Early, and so that way it's so they are a better judge for where the bar, in my opinion, is. Does it mean that they have the same standing as I do? Probably not. But I can still see what prowess excellence is, so it's still recognizable. But yes, I think it's not that it's not even, that it fluctuates with the fighters and who comes in the order, who's been fighting, who's still active, and stuff like that.
All right, Benjamin, and then Talon, and then Anthony to finish it out, and then we'll go to the next question.
So I don't disagree with most of what people are saying about recognizing prowess, recognizing ability of things, and judging people who may be joining our order based on people who have most recently joined the order. What I do disagree with is the thing that gets floated around a whole bunch is, well, you know, that floating bar, and that bar doesn't change. That bar has changed a whole bunch, right? Like, one of the knights I fight with has been a knight for 30 years. The knowledge he has now is insanely compounded on what he was 30 years ago and what the knowledge was 30 years ago. And someone who shows it up at our practice today and says, hey, I want you to start teaching me, is going to benefit from this foundation that did not exist that long ago. So you can't judge an order, you can't judge any of what we do based on there is this static bar that exists that has always existed across the entire span of time, right? That bar does change, because if any one of us on this call was fighting 30 or 40 years ago, we would be
Dukes.
recognizably different in our advancement in the society, right? Like, so it is a floating bar, and it is a constantly evolving bar, and that is based on the body of knowledge that we have and the teaching that happens and the experience that people bring to it, and the longtime fighters that we have in our game. Like, we've got people who've been fighting for 40 years or more that are still out there teaching and still sharing the benefit and still talking about, yeah, I basically wore leather gloves and a teapot and beat the shit out of my friends. Like, that's not the same game we're playing now, and they've learned a lot, and I benefit hugely from that. And the fact they take time to teach me means I have cleared all sorts of hurdles that they had to clear on their own from the benefit of learning that. So that bar does move, and that bar absolutely has moved over time. So I just want to be clear about that, right?
Yeah, apologies. I just want to mention that when I meant the bar doesn't shift, I'm thinking throughout the kingdom, not over time.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just want to clear what I was saying, because you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to change when we're the guys that have been fighting for 30 plus years, and we've got the new people coming in, because the game's going to evolve all over again and probably get reinvented in that span of time. Because every time some new armor comes out, or new system, or new YouTube channel with someone who's got fight videos from the middle of nowhere on Stiora, and suddenly we're going, oh, that looks fun, I want to try that. Changes the game again. All right, Talon and then Anton.
So in the last video that the OTCs did, they all agreed they got elevated for not the same thing. They all came in at different ways. They got recognized in different ways. And so saying that there is a bar may fluctuate depending on where you're coming from and where you're going. What I look for is if you can throw 1,000 shots, but I don't see confidence or presence of mind, I know you're just throwing. If I see you are, there's a look of confidence in what you do and execution of technique that makes me notice you in that way, then I'm starting to think you're getting it. There's a book called The Way and the Power. It talks about a thing called Mushin, which is no mind, where you're not thinking about winning or losing, you're in the moment. And you're not worried about winning or losing. It's not a forefront of your thought. Your thought is just being in the moment. When you can do that kind of stuff, and you can react to a changing fight on the fly, I don't expect greatness or night level fights, but there's confidence and determination in your actions. Then I know there's something more.
Yeah, there was something that Sarayu mentioned last time we were talking about this, about imposing your will in a fight.
Yes.
Instead of throwing 1,000 shots and hoping one sticks, I'm going to throw 3 because I know this is going to make you move your shield, and this is going to do this, and this is how I'm going to capitalize. That takes your prowess up to a whole new level instead of throwing at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Right.
So, all right, Anton.
So the bar is a super interesting thing, and for me, I think one of the first and hardest lessons that I learned, I was talking to 2 or 3 members of the Chivalry, and we were talking about an OTC candidate. Now, I was made an OTC in June. I won a tourney in September and became a prince in the end of October. Right. So this is a real short time span. Real like things move quick. So I went from OTC to Royal Peer like that. And here I am 7-8 months after getting my OTC, talking to a couple of members of the Chivalry about an OTC candidate. And they started laughing at me. They straight up started laughing at me. And they were like, dude, you're a Royal Peer. And I was like, yeah. They're like, so do you expect anyone who's an OTC or candidate, since you just got your OTC, should be at your level? And I went, well, I mean, and from that moment on, all you can try to do is assume where that bar needs to be, right? I don't ever expect that anyone needs to beat me, ever, for me to poll yes for them for an OTC or for Chivalry, right? You could never beat me, and I would still pull yes if I feel you have the required level of prowess, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that sometimes people are just other people's foils. I could think of 2 or 3 knights that I know who, on paper and looking at their win-loss record and the people that we all fight, right? Like they're dudes that I should crush, like just crush. But I can never beat them. They always get me. They're my foils. There's something about their style. There's something about the way that they move. There's something about their general presentation or presence that every time they've got me. Like I will put someone in this AMA on the spot. I'm gonna call you out, Trent. Right? Like you never ever ever get me when I think you should get me, and then I watch you fight other people, and I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. And then you come back and fight me, and I'm like, what just happened, bro? Like, I want you to snake me. Like, I want you to whoop my butt because I know you're good. And sometimes it just doesn't happen, and I can't tell why that happens. And I'm saying this because I think you're awesome, not because I'm trying to put you down. But that's a thing that happens to everybody. There's just some people that you're going to fight that are always going to whoop you, even though you're better than them, right? So actual wins and losses isn't a metric. Do you try and take control of the fight? Do you control the center line? Do you have a plan B? When plan B fails, do you have plan C? Do you try and take range or timing away from me? Do you try to impose your will upon me, which is also a great one. And I love that, as I know Ryu loves that. And I love the book that came from. It's an excellent read, one that Duke Sean actually recommends too. So it's a book that comes highly recommended. But the bar is a thing that is always going to change. It just is. And the best way for me to try and feel that out is to look at how they react to fights with me and feedback that I give them or openings that I leave them, regardless of a win or a lose. And then to look at the other people who have met that bar most recently. And that's by no means a concrete option, right? But there are plenty of people who I have, say, pulled no on and then watched them, receive whatever that award or accolade is. And I went, cool. Not because I had voted or pulled no, because I disagreed with them, but because I didn't feel their prowess was in the right place. And I recognize that maybe they just don't fight me well. Maybe they fight you better than me. Maybe they fight everybody else better than me. Maybe they could whoop everybody in this room except me. How do you pull? How do you offer advice and counsel on that, right? I always figure in a case like that, the poll will bear the truth. And I guess sometimes I'm just the mean guy. I guess I do have kind of a higher bar, I suspect. But when you look at the bar as a static concept, it just doesn't work. We can't have a metric for that. The only other place that I know that does similar stuff is AmpGuard, right? I don't know if any of you guys do or have done AmpGuard, but I know that some of their actual award system is predicated upon the metric of winning or placing in specific, positions in X number of tournaments in a row of X size or larger. And like, if our sport ever went to that, I would throw my hands up and storm away, because all you're doing at that point is forcing people to fake wins. If they have one bad day, you ruin that metric. That's just terrible. So I'm talking a lot. I'm going to stop. You should have cut me off already.
You were making good points, so I didn't want to.
All good.
All right, so we're getting to the last few minutes, and there's one question in here that I wanted to ask you guys, because it kind of comes into what we're dealing with during COVID. Because a lot of us before COVID happened is we will do the fighter brain thing. We will ignore injuries, we'll ignore aches, we'll ignore pains because we've got the event that weekend, we've got the tournament that weekend. And there are folks that will be right at that bar, then they get hurt. So I want to know how you guys look at folks that were at that bar and they got injured. Talon and Reinhardt.
If you get hurt, I want you to be smart, because I want you around for the long-term game. I want to see you progress. OTC, Shiv, if you decide to chase that go down that path, but be there for the long game. this is again going saying this is an intrinsic thing I must have to be valued. No, take care of yourself first, and we aren't going anywhere. Go take care of yourself. I will respect you if you bow out for a little while, come back stronger. But if you push yourself to get injured and you get your OTC and find out you've crippled yourself, why are you doing this? You're doing this to have fun. Come play with us. Take the break. I will never look bad at anyone being smart about they need to step out for a little while to take care of themselves. I will actually think they've got it up here to do the right thing. Because if they're willing to do that for themselves, if they go further down the road and they're training people, they won't push them to injure themselves. They'll push them to make the smart decisions. And I will respect that 100% of the time.
Reinhardt, and then Trent.
So you should, like, it's a game. It's a sport. You should not put in jeopardy your own health over what you do. That being said, I fought for about a year with a bad elbow. It was horrible fighting, and I'm pretty sure that I shot myself in the foot fighting with that bad elbow, because my fighting got down. There were movements I was stopping to do. There was some stuff, and I mean, to this day, I still have occasional pain in my elbow. So just don't do it. It's not a matter of getting it fast. It's just a matter of getting there. And if you have it before being injured, you'll have it after when you come back. It's not a race. So just take your time. Be sure to heal. Be smart.
Don't do what I did. I was pushing it, and back in 2016, in the middle of a tournament, actually fighting Reinhardt, I went to throw a shot and dislocated my shoulder because it wasn't healed properly, and it separated midway through the motion. I was dumb, put it back in, and finished the tournament left-handed.
It's also a good way to have your opponent feel terrible. Just don't do that.
Take the time to heal, because, again, like Talon said, this is a long game. My shoulder's at 75%. It will be 75% for the rest of my life because surgery cannot fix it. If you take the 6 months, 8 months out and come back stronger, you will be far happier in the long run. Trent?
I just want to add one thing I personally look for. Somebody's almost at that level and then they get injured. Unless it's something where you can't walk, don't disappear. Nothing pisses me off more than somebody who, because they can't fight, they're not going to show up to an event. They're not going to help out their brothers. They're just going to walk away because they can't stand to see it if they can't play. It's like, you're not helping anyone. And quite honestly, there's a lot of times when you could actually learn by watching, and you're taking that away from yourself as well. So be there.
That goes back to the trainer thing. Is like, we're fighters. We love to fight. We love to suit up, go and hit people and hit each other all day long. But there is a lot more to the SCA than just fighting. If you can't fight, you can still serve. You can learn an art. You can marshal. You can still teach the new folks how to fight. There's a lot more you can do to be a Scadian than to just be a fighter. Benjamin?
Yeah, marshalling especially. If you're hurt, marshalling is a great thing to do. I've run a fight the last 8 years at Penzic with up to 200 fighters, and there have been times when I've had 120, 130 fighters on the field, and it's been me and one other marshal. So if you're hurt, come out and marshal for us. We'd love it. The other thing I would say about injury, the only time that I would view injury badly against somebody who's advancing is if it is poor technique that results in that injury. There are people that I have seen throw shots that eventually they're just going to rip their elbow apart or their shoulder apart. And yeah, they're getting there and they're hitting that shot, but they're doing it at the cost of their body, and their body gives up before they get recognized. And in those cases, that's the one exception where it's, yeah, I really don't want to judge you badly, but man, you did that to yourself or woman.
Oh, and to answer the question that's flying through chat, no, I didn't kill Reinhardt when I threw that shot. He hit me about a second before.
So you hurt yourself and you lost.
Yep.
Wow.
Learn
And
from my stupid.
And made me feel terrible.
Learn from my stupid people.
That was a win.
Colin?
I started doing this when I was 18. 54 now. And there are days where I'm like, oh yeah, this is still something I can do. And sometimes it really amazes me that I've been doing this as long as I have, and I still have some time left in it. And when you get that perspective, yeah, injury, it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm done screwing around. You know, I've already blown my shoulder. I did that. You know, I've done things to my knees, you know, but the knee replacement was a wake-up call. It's like, yeah, I got to be able to walk. So yeah, when you're sidelined, it's like, yeah, show up, bring people water, marshal, you know, help out at practice, do whatever you got to do to stay engaged. But yeah, I mean, you know, take care of yourself.
Water bearers are some of the most important people in this game, because if it wasn't for water bearers, I would be real dead. There was one at Penzic last year. It was this 12-year-old girl running around with water, and she didn't care who you were, how many points or how many leaves were on your crown. She would look at you and go, "You should sit." Why? You need to drink, and would literally put the water and would not leave until you took a drink. She walked up to who was it? She walked up to and just barrel faced. It was
those are just always the best.
Oh yeah, and it was great. All right, and with that, that comes to the end of our show. Thank you all for joining us on this wonderful evening. Hopefully we answered your questions, and if not, shoot us a message. I mean, most of us you can find on Facebook or somewhere. If you've got questions, if you're a fighter coming up, give us a shout. We're happy to help. Anyone else got any final words?
Keep training. Don't slack off. It's not because you're not hitting somebody that you can't hit anything.
Hell work's a thing. Hell work and slow work, especially right now, gives you a chance to learn those new shots and make sure you're not rusty when we can start fighting again.
Reform.
Yup.
Lots of good videos out there, from the champions fights to crown tourneys. Lots of wonderful things to go view, observe, and try and pick up.
Yep, and in this wonderful ethereal SCA that we are in now, there are shows just about every single night. We've got on the other coast with the Grace Helga, we've got Between Two Peers. That's been a wonderful show to watch. You never know who's going to come on there next or what they're going to talk about, but it's always informative and always entertaining. And there's, at this point, I think a drinking game involved in it too. There's certain rules. They'll put the post up. And Sir Rivkin out in Avantier has been doing a Murder of Dukes interview. Usually she goes through every year and fights 50 Dukes and records it. Instead, she's been doing interviews with them and is past 50 now and has interviewed Dukes from just about every corner of the known world. So she lives in Avantier, so 50 Dukes is like a crown tournament. It's, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I was like 50. Where do you find 50 Dukes to fight
Coast.
except like Penzic or? Wow.
I mean, your average crown tournament
Or if your name is
70?
Anton.
Yeah, I mean, Anton, what was the crown you were in the West? There was 90-something people in it last time when you finaled with Uther.
98. Yeah, it was a good day.
Yeah, their crown tournaments are a weekend event on the West Coast. So, if you guys get the chance to go out west and fight, do it. It'll completely change your game. And with that, everyone have a good night. We will sign off. Take care, stay safe, and hopefully we see you all again soon.
Be well,
Have a good
brothers.
one, guys.
Take care.
Good night.